Imagine trying to explain something really important, maybe a health problem, to a doctor. But the way you naturally speak, the dialect you grew up with, it creates this little barrier.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't know the words exactly, but how you say them isn't quite standard.
Right. It's a subtle thing, but it can have huge consequences.
And that's not just a thought experiment. It's a daily reality for millions of people in Bangladesh. It's a country with this incredible richness of regional dialects, which is amazing culturally, but it can actually get in the way of clear communication sometimes, especially in really vital areas.
Yeah, definitely.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into Zamrul. It's this really ambitious project that's trying to tackle that exact problem, bridging this linguistic divide in Bangladesh.
And we've got some great source material to work with. We have a personal vision statement from Fawaz Rob. He's the person who came up with the idea for Zamrul, so we get a sense of his personal drive.
Mm.
And alongside that, we have a full business plan, very detailed. It lays out the problem they see, the tech solution they're proposing, how they plan to roll it out, all of that.
Okay, so our mission today is to really get under the hood, understand the problem Zamrul is trying to fix, how their solution is supposed to work, and what difference it could actually make for people there.
Exactly.
And this Fawaz Rob character, his background is pretty interesting. Not your typical tech guy. He studied product design in San Francisco, but also architecture in Florence and fine arts back in Bangladesh.
Wow, that's quite a mix.
Yeah. And crucially, he speaks multiple languages: Bangla, English, Italian, French. But even more relevant here, he apparently knows 4 different regional dialects within Bangladesh.
Okay, so he has firsthand experience of these linguistic nuances. That must be a huge part of why he started this.
You'd think so, right? That personal understanding.
It's absolutely key. I mean, when you look at Bangladesh, the sheer scale of the linguistic diversity is, well, it's huge. You're talking over 160 million people. And yeah, Standard Bangla is the official language used in schools, government, hospitals. But for a massive chunk of the population, that's not actually their mother tongue. They grow up speaking one of these dozens of regional dialects.
And the business plan really flags how this disproportionately affects certain groups. Women, girls, indigenous communities seem to face the biggest hurdles.
Yeah, that comes through strongly.
Just trying to access basic things like healthcare or education becomes harder because of these language differences. Imagine trying to follow a lesson or explain symptoms when the standard language isn't what you use day to day.
That's such a critical point. And it's not just individuals, right? The sources talk about the challenges for organizations working on the ground.
Like NGOs and aid agencies.
Exactly. NGOs, UN agencies, even government programs trying to deliver services or get information out there, they struggle with effective communication across these different dialect areas.
Yeah, I can see that. Trying to run a public health campaign or distribute aid.
Right. If people don't fully understand the message because of the dialect difference, the whole effort can be undermined.
And the business plan spells out some pretty serious consequences. Things like miscommunication in healthcare, possibly leading to misdiagnosis. That's genuinely scary.
It really is, especially in rural areas where healthcare access might already be limited.
And then there's education. Kids whose home language isn't standard Bangla, they could be at a disadvantage right from the start.
Setting them back academically.
Yeah. And in crisis situations, that communication breakdown could mean humanitarian aid doesn't get to the people who need it most urgently. It's quite a list of problems.
It really paints a picture of why something like Zamrul might be needed.
Okay, so let's talk about the solution then. What exactly is Zamrul, according to the plan?
So Zamrul is designed as a free app, mobile and web, using artificial intelligence. The main goal is translation
Okay.
between standard Bangla and initially 6 of the major regional dialects. But what seems really core to their approach is this emphasis on community input.
Community input.
How so? Well, they're not just building it in a lab and releasing it. The plan stresses that the development relies on community members contributing and validating the language data. It's built with the users.
Oh, okay, that sounds smart. More grassroots. The how it works part mentioned something called gamified crowdsourcing.
Exactly. That's the mechanism. The idea is that community members could be teachers, students, anyone fluent in both standard Bangla and a dialect can contribute translations, maybe even voice recordings, through an app.
And the gamified part.
They plan to make it engaging, earning points, badges, maybe even small cash rewards for contributing high-quality data. It encourages participation.
Right? Makes sense. Get people involved and invested.
And that's where AI comes in. These algorithms are supposed to sift through all those community contributions, figure out the best translations, and learn over time to get better and better.
So it's like a cycle. Community feeds data, AI learns, translations improve.
Precisely. And they're also planning specific modules for different sectors, medical language, educational terms, humanitarian vocabulary.
Tailoring it to those critical areas we talked about.
Exactly. Makes the translations more relevant and useful in context.
And how do people get access? You said it's free.
Free for individual users, yes. That seems key for reaching those marginalized communities. But for organizations, NGOs, UN agencies, maybe businesses who might need more features or data analytics or want to integrate it into their own systems.
Like an API.
Right, API access. For them, they're planning a subscription model. That's the business side.
Okay, so a sort of freemium approach tailored to different user types.
Kind of, yeah. Free for the masses, paid tiers for organizational use.
So why do they think this will work? What makes them confident? The business plan must cover that.
It does. They highlight a few key things. First, that community-driven approach we just discussed.
Getting buy-in from the start.
Exactly. It fosters ownership, trust, and ensures it's actually useful for the target communities, particularly focusing on women, girls, and indigenous youth.
And they're not the first to try something like this, are they? The plan mentions other projects.
Right. They're drawing inspiration from successful models. Things like Mozilla Common Voice, that big open-source voice data project.
Yes, I know that one.
And Masakane, which focuses on African languages, and Tutuba, the sentence translation database. They show that community-driven language data collection can work.
So it's a proven concept adapted for Bangladesh.
Pretty much. They're tailoring the model specifically for the Bangladeshi context, learning from what worked, maybe what didn't, in those other projects.
Okay, what else gives them confidence?
Scalability and sustainability. The crowdsourcing makes data collection relatively low cost compared to traditional methods. The AI helps automate quality improvement, reducing long-term operational costs. And that dual revenue model, free users plus paid organizational subscriptions, creates a path to financial stability.
So it's not just relying on grants or donations forever.
Hopefully not. The plan is for it to become self-sustaining.
And underlying all this is the social impact, right? Empowering people.
Absolutely. That's clearly a core driver. The potential to improve healthcare, education, aid effectiveness.
Yeah.
It's all about empowering those communities who are currently disadvantaged by the language barrier.
Okay, let's talk market opportunity. How big is the potential user base here?
The numbers are pretty significant. The plan estimates over 50 million people in rural and indigenous communities in Bangladesh could benefit.
50 million, wow.
Yeah. Plus, you've got over 1,500 NGOs and UN agencies working in the country, many of whom would presumably be interested.
And the specific sectors? Healthcare, education.
Huge sectors. Around 20 million students in the education system, and something like 70% of the population living in rural areas, often with specific healthcare access challenges.
So the need seems definitely there. They even mentioned potential global expansion later.
Yeah, a long-term vision, tackling other low-resource languages facing similar challenges. But the focus now is clearly Bangladesh.
Makes sense. So drilling down into the money side, the revenue streams, you mentioned subscriptions for organizations.
Right. That's the base. Bulk access, those sector-specific modules we talked about, analytics, API access, all part of potential subscription packages.
But there was more, wasn't there? Something about pro-model integration.
Yeah, that's interesting. Licensing their translation technology to other existing platforms.
Like learning apps or health apps.
Exactly. They mention names like 10-Minute School, Shiko for education technology, and Aroga for health tech. Integrating Zanarruel into those widely used apps could massively expand its reach.
Clever. Embed it where people already are.
And then there are enterprise solutions, tailored integrations for specific hospitals, doctors' offices, maybe government departments.
More customized offerings.
Right. And finally, direct government partnerships. Collaborating on, say, translating public service information into indigenous languages. That fits the social mission and could be a revenue source.
Okay, that seems like a well-rounded approach to revenue. How do they plan to get this off the ground, the go-to-market strategy?
It's phased. Year one is all about the MVP, the minimum viable product.
The basic version?
Right. Get a working app out there with the core translation function for just 2 pilot dialects. They mention Saladi and Chatgaya as likely candidates.
Okay, Start small, test it out.
And build partnerships early with big NGOs like BRAC, local schools, women's groups, plus run community campaigns really targeting female students and indigenous youth to get them involved in contributing data.
And ensuring quality from the start.
Crucial, using teachers and community leaders to help moderate the initial translations.
Okay, so year 1 is MVP, pilots, partnerships, and data gathering. What about year 2?
Year 2 is expansion. Adding 4 more dialects, Noakhaya, Kumalaya, Rangpura, Borshaya are listed.
Covering more ground.
And releasing those first sector-specific content packs, medical and educational. This is also when they plan to actively start selling to businesses and government organizations. B2B to B2G.
Got it. And year 3?
Scale up, aiming for a full national rollout, making the API available for integration into other apps, and starting to seriously explore expansion beyond Bangladesh.
It sounds logical. A step-by-step growth plan.
Seems like it.
What about the tech itself? How are they collecting data and building the AI?
The data collection is multi-pronged. There's the gamified app, which is key for community contributions, partnerships with schools to get more structured language data, and even transcribing existing regional media like radio shows or local dramas, maybe.
Okay, gathering it from different sources.
Mm-hmm.
And the AI, building it from scratch.
No, the plan is more practical. They intend to take existing open-source large language models, they mention NLLB and MBART as examples.
Models that already understand language structure.
Exactly. And then fine-tune them using the specific dialect data they collect through crowdsourcing and other means.
So teaching these general models the specifics of Silati or Chatgaya.
That's the idea. The real challenge, of course, is getting enough good quality labeled dialect data to do that fine-tuning effectively.
And the app itself. What are the key features?
Designed to be lightweight, use minimal data and storage, important for users with basic smartphones or limited connectivity.
Offline functionality, too.
Yes, crucial for areas with spotty internet, and it needs to handle different inputs, text, voice, even using the camera, maybe to translate a sign or a document.
And keeping the translations accurate.
An ongoing process. They plan a mix. Community voting on the best translations, review by qualified teachers or linguists, and AI algorithms constantly ranking and improving suggestions.
Sounds like a robust quality control loop. What about the team behind this?
Well, Fawaz Rob is the founder and CEO. The plan acknowledges the need to build out the core team co-founders with expertise in AI, linguistics, social impact work, finance, the usual startup needs.
Makes sense.
They also list some existing partnerships within Bangladesh companies like Bengali.ai, Gaze, Intelligent Machines Limited. That local tech expertise is vital.
And global advisors, too.
Yeah, mentions getting advice from places like Hugging Face, top-doll academic experts, bringing in that wider perspective. And importantly, they highlight recruiting community champions.
People on the ground in the dialect communities.
Exactly. To promote the app, encourage participation, provide feedback. Again, reinforcing that grassroots connection.
Okay, almost there. Let's touch on the financials. What are they looking for?
The ask is $1 billion in funding. Equity is listed as negotiable.
And where's that money going?
Pretty standard allocation for this stage. Product development, the big data collection effort, building the team and operations, marketing and outreach, and developing those partnerships and sales channels.
Okay, and the long-term financial picture. Are they expecting to make money?
The 5-year projections show the typical startup curve. Initial years show a net loss as they invest heavily in building the platform and gathering all that crucial language data.
Right, burning cash initially.
Yeah. But the plan anticipates hitting break-even around year 4 and achieving sustainable profitability by year 5. Year 1 specifically focuses on getting that MVP out, spending around $300,000.
And a chunk of that year 1 spending. A significant amount is earmarked for those community incentives. The points, rewards, to really drive that initial data collection. Revenue isn't really expected until year 2, kicking off with those first B2B clients.
So investing heavily in the community data first, then building the revenue streams, makes sense. That initial investment in incentives really shows they're serious about the crowdsourcing aspect.
Yeah, it seems fundamental to their whole plan.
Okay.
So, wrapping this up, Zamrul really does look like a hugely ambitious project. It's sitting right at that intersection of community action and AI technology.
Trying to solve a very real, very significant communication problem in Bangladesh.
Yeah, stemming from that incredible linguistic diversity, the focus on involving marginalized communities right from the start, and the way they've thought about a sustainable business model alongside the social goals. It's quite compelling.
It really is. The potential impact improving access to education, healthcare, making aid more effective, even helping preserve these dialects, it's genuinely significant. It's quite inspiring, actually.
Absolutely. And that leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. As we see more projects like this emerge, how could these kinds of community-driven, AI-powered approaches be used elsewhere?
Right, and other multilingual societies facing similar inclusion challenges.
Exactly. It makes you think, doesn't it, about how technology, when it's thoughtfully combined with community engagement, can genuinely help bridge communication gaps and foster understanding across cultures. Definitely something to keep an eye on.